Welcome, everyone. My name is Patrick Lynch. I'm the Vice President of CFE Technology in our Services Division. I'm joined here today by Gavin Davidson, who's going to introduce himself in a minute, but we're going to get his feedback about their response to the COVID-19 pandemic, where the challenges have existed and where the opportunities might lie in both the short term and the long term. So, Gavin, if you wouldn't mind.
Sure. Hey, this is Gavin Davidson. I'm in the Industry Product Management Group at NetSuite. I've been with NetSuite for 10 years in August. My background is manufacturing. I actually did an apprenticeship in Glasgow, Scotland on production engineering. So I know how to program CNC machines and assemble pumps and all those good things before diving into the ERP world.
Wonderful. Wonderful. So we'll go ahead and get started. And just from a general perspective, if you could describe how COVID-19 has impacted your specific marketplace, industries, and or your supply chains.
Sure. So, I mean, I'm going to talk about both Oracle, NetSuite, and what we're hearing from our customers as well. So I remember actually the first time I saw a NetSuite dashboard, and I was ERP consultant doing some work, and saw the ad flash up in the browser one time, and I thought, oh, that was kind of interesting, and it had gave me a quick overview of the dashboard, and I was like, you can run your entire business in a browser. And so you fast forward to now, and I think hopefully our customers have recognized that they put themselves in a pretty good position from a technology standpoint, be able to run their businesses. We'd often tell people, or customers, prospects, when they asked about stability of the internet, that sort of thing, and we say, you can a stretch, you can go and run NetSuite from your local Starbucks, and here we are, all having to work from home and do that sort of thing. And so and I think that's really important. Is just be able to work anywhere has been a critical part as well. Obviously, we have a lot of our customers deal with supply chain issues. I think what they're seeing is, really the difference between a supply chain and a supply network. It's really only as strong as your weakest link, right? So a lot of this is really about communication with your partners, your supply chain partners, relationships. At this time, and I guess the one thing that's different is that everyone's in the same boat. There's nobody who's avoiding this. And so, you really need to lean on those relationships when things like cash management become, a major issue, or a major thing to worry about. And so if you have that communication with your vendors and a good relationship, and with your customers too, then I think those things can all help for sure.
Okay.
And we're personally lucky. Oracle does a pretty good job with technology. We all have the option to work from home anyway. Not everyone's as lucky as that. I can tell you even that, for example, if you want a new piece of software on your laptop here, we have like a procurement system online you can go and use. And once that purchase is approved, 9 times out of 10, the software is downloaded and automatically installed on your laptop. So those are things that companies can look at. Obviously, not everyone has the ability that the Oracle does to deliver those, but looking at cloud in general, I think that's definitely the way to go.
And then looking forward a little bit, how do you see this kind of the impact that COVID-19 has put on the markets? How do you see it shaping it in the short and long term? And more specifically, what will be the new norm in terms of technology and system advancements, or maybe people and personnel changes? Do you forecast different training requirements that these manufacturing facilities will require? So kind of looking at, maybe the next 3 months all the way out to maybe the next 3 years, it's an open-ended question, but I'd be curious how you see this. What will be the short-term impact and more the longer-term impact?
Yes, I mean, the thing we're hearing all the time is supply chain visibility, and this is when you're realizing exactly how much visibility you have and what communication protocols you have in place with your suppliers. and right now people are looking at looking for alternate sources, so multi-sourcing. I think longer term, reshoring has been going on for a while, but this has definitely has brought it into the foresight, I guess. I think it really starts still with analyzing where you are in terms of your supply chain, and so I kind of break it down into 4 different elements. And so you really take a hard look at what you have before you can figure out what to improve going forward. So the first element is really, again, integration. So what ability do you have, what does your company have to integrate with your suppliers and your customers? So you can rate your trading partners and try and identify where those weak points might be, and maybe that's where you try and multi-source. Where you're not getting as much communication from certain partners as well. On the operations side, then, how do you take all that information and then use it? Back in the day when I was doing ERP implementations, often with automotive companies, they'd say they did EDI, but they really had an EDI computer in the corner of the office, and they basically just used it to receive the sales orders from Ford or whoever. And then they'd print off that order and they'd type it back into their ERP system. So, every breakdown and like that has a potential for issues and problems going down the line. So you need to try and look at where you're falling down, look at what information you have and how you can use it. So the third part is then procurement, right? So you got all that, you got all the information, you figure out operationally what you're going to do with it. How do you use that information then to make better decisions and identify those SKUs or maybe faster moving that weren't before? And can you try and position those in other markets, that sort of thing? And then the last part is really logistics, because you still have to, all this technology and information is great, it's all going over the internet. At the end of the day, somebody has to move something from A to B. And you're probably going to have to evaluate how you get product to your warehouses and to your customers as well. As we do all those things, you look at how this current situation has affected buying patterns. How well are you adapting to those? And we've been talking for a long time about autonomous supply chains. So you take all that data and what you're going to do with it. We've been even talking for years about using like IoT and AI machine learning and stuff, and maybe overlaying like weather patterns and stuff to try and figure out when shipments are going to be late. What about looking at border closures and the status of certain countries when it comes to what their policies are? Can you bring those in and maybe find some different trade routes that might function better and have a lower risk of being problematic as well? And then at the same time, evaluating your vendors, how well do they communicate, how often do they communicate, how accurate is that communication? You can use all those things to really try and drive that forward. And the last couple of things, we've been talking for a while about additive manufacturing, 3D printing. We've seen even some of our customers making face shields. Using those designs that have been published online, and before they were just using those 3D printers, were just doing prototyping, but now they're actually making products, etc. So I think this has kind of opened up companies' eyes. Hopefully, it has to what some of the possibilities are there. And in terms of, you talked about roles and people and that sort of thing. One of my favorite things when I was doing implementations of systems, if I got to a company that had a cost controller, I would be in such a happy place, because you had somebody who's full-time his job was to analyze work orders and costs and figure out where things are going, that sort of thing. So if you take all that information that we just talked about, I really think there's a piece missing, whether it's a data scientist or some kind of analyst, and figuring out what information you have, how you can use it to your advantage, and try and drive your business forward using that too.
Great. And that kind of touched on both questions 2 and 3. So we'll go ahead into question 4, more kind of on the teamwork and collaboration, how do you foresee engineering teams evolving in terms of communication and tools to drive productivity and the corresponding efficiencies in the coming months, right? How will this improve collaboration? How will it challenge kind of the teamwork side of things where people slowly, are opening up the societies and people are coming back into the facilities? How do you see what we've learned during the last 90 days or so of the pandemic maybe transfer over when things normalize a bit, whenever that may be?
I think this is also like a very age-related question. Not everyone's as comfortable with the technology as maybe others are. So I think some generations are probably dealing with it better than others. Personally, when I went into the office, or when I could go into the office, I really did it for I like the distraction. When I work, I have music playing in the background, that sort of thing usually. So I personally have been working in different spots in the house. So when I first started, our communication in NetSuite was all Yahoo Messenger. Now we're using Slack, more secure. We have access to the company directory. It's got really great plugins, that sort of thing. So you can go and still find people within the company. Larry Ellison himself has talked about the impact that Zoom has had. And unfortunately, in some ways, our whole team is now doing like twice as many meetings as we did before. Because we're getting more requests from sales for support, that sort of thing. You can do rapid, like half-hour meetings sort of thing as well. And it goes back to my days when I first joined NetSuite doing demos, and I would be going back to back all day. So not quite used to that at this point. But Zoom is interesting. It's like, I think it's really important that you encourage the use of cameras. We have some people who are not very good at it. We have others who do, but it's even if you're not having your best hair day, sometimes that can show a little bit of character. And people are using backgrounds with Star Wars backgrounds and that sort of thing. It gives you some insight, right, as to what their personality is like. And I think that's something that we're all missing right now as part of that.
Absolutely. So the final question is, how will engineers and manufacturing help bring the economy back to growth mode, right? Is it going to be a bit of the reshoring? Is it going to be the technological advancements? Is it going to be things like cloud computing? What can engineers do to kind of be seen as leading us back? Because depending on, which analyst report you look at, manufacturing has stayed fairly steady in the US throughout this kind of time. Certain sectors obviously doing better than others, but how can kind of engineers and manufacturing help bring the economy back to growth? They won't be the only ones, although if you ask an engineer, they will say they are the only ones. But how do you think they can help, lead the charge, so to say?
But I think that's, I think if you look at the core of engineering, it's innovation, right? And so that's really been the thing that's, I've always been really proud to be involved in manufacturing. I've always thought it's a super cool thing to be in, to take something, design it, and and it doesn't matter really. A lot of our customers design product and they have it made elsewhere. It's the process of design that I think is the really, really interesting thing here. So people are looking to engineers for creative solutions, to provide thought leadership. In terms of technology, one of the other things, we have a bunch of customers who are starting to use autonomous robotics, both in their warehouses and in manufacturing environments. And these are robots that can work alongside a person, not necessarily in place of them. And they're really easy to deploy. We actually have a few customers who make these systems. And it's basically like if you buy one of those robot vacuums, we have one in the house here, and you turn it on and it goes and maps out the floor of your house. And it does exactly the same thing. You buy these, you hook up to a network, it goes around, it scans your production floor or warehouse. You then overlay other areas it can go or not go, what its tasks are, that sort of thing. And you can really take away some of the mundane tasks that lets your people, that maybe your few people or reduced workforce, work on the things where we actually need their brains to work on it. And another thing is, as well, going back to my ERP implementation days, I often found that the two most qualified departments in a business, manufacturing business, were finance. So you probably have a controller who had a degree or something, hopefully had a degree. And then the engineers, right? So, and everyone else, a lot of times in between, they would look to the finance office and the engineering office for solutions. And so I think, you know, be who you are, provide leadership where you can, come up with creative solutions. You know, assume that everything you've known up to this point is completely wrong, and figure out how you evolve to answer that in the future better than if you have.
Great. That's great feedback. Well, with that, we'll go ahead and conclude this interview. I want to say thanks to Gavin for joining us here today, and take care.